The Thrall of the Wild, a down and dirty supernatural cleaning services prequel by Kate Karyus Quinn, Demitria Lunetta, and Marley Lynn. Narrated by Carrie Coelho. 1. I was supposed to spend my 30th birthday in Vegas with my parents, celebrating a whole new portion of my life. My mom always said that your 30s should be the best decade ever. You're no longer a stupid 20-something, but also not an over-the-hill 40-something. We were going to blow all our money on high-stakes roulette, eat ourselves stupid at various buffets, and crown it all off with a trip to one of those semi-classy male stripper shows. That last one would have been just Mom and me. We invited Dad, but he said, in his usual dry way, that he didn't want to outshine the performers. Then he gave his beer belly a few loving pats and continued to vocally imagine a scenario where the crowd swarms him instead of the lean and pristine performers. I was really looking forward to it. Lame, I know. Who parties in Vegas with their parents? Well, I do. Or I did, before they disappeared a year ago in what everyone calls the Great Ghosting. Thousands of people all across the planet disappeared into thin air in the blink of an eye. There was no rhyme or reason to it. Some families were spared entirely, and some were wiped from the face of the earth. Some, like mine, had only a few members vanish, leaving the rest of us behind, lost, heartbroken, and looking for answers. Nobody knows what caused it, and it's not considered politically correct to point fingers. We're all supposed to come together over this great tragedy. But humans know the soups had to be involved. Nothing like the Great Ghosting has ever happened throughout the history of time. The fact that soups show up and humans disappear all in the same decade have to be related. I was born into a world without soups. Or at least, if they moved among us, we didn't know it. Most people thought that vampires, witches, and shifters, not to mention other gods and monsters straight out of Greek mythology, were nothing more than stories. Then, about 10 years ago, all hell broke loose. Literally. Earthquakes, floods, hordes of locusts, and hail the size of baby kittens. It was the end of the world as we knew it. For a while, everything was chaos, and survival was the focus. But as the dust started to settle, it became very clear that something more than just the weather patterns had changed. In our own New Jersey neighborhood, the first sign of this change was the Fae gang that took over the corner liquor store. We thought they were just unusually pretty gangbangers until they started shooting fireballs from their bare hands. Then the vampires showed up, and it wasn't safe to go out at night as they engaged in various turf wars with the Fae. Lots of humans got caught and killed in the crossfire. Compared to the soups, we were small and weak, but not helpless. Eventually, law enforcement pulled it together. The soups started policing and punishing their own, and life returned to normal. Kind of. That's when my dad and I opened a new business together. Down and dirty, supernatural cleaning services. We specialized in helping humans whose lives had gotten messed up by soups, and that was a large number of us. Dad and I were there to straighten things out. We became experts at removing bloodstains, sanding down scratch marks in hardwood floors left by werewolves or bear shifters, and even cleaning up harpy droppings. It's not the life I'd imagined for myself back when I was a bright-eyed teenager. And there were some bumps along the way, like my failed marriage. But overall, I ended most days counting my blessings. Vegas was more than just a birthday bacchanal. It was a celebration of survival, and a chance to have some soup-free time. None of the casinos allow soups in. They have high-tech systems to keep them out. Nobody wants witches with magic, shifters with quick tempers, or vamps who have lived long enough to become expert at counting cards tipping the odds. If going to Vegas with your parents is lame, then going alone is just sad. Without parents in my life anymore, I decided to stay home and pretend my birthday isn't happening at all. In fact, I'm even working today. I figured it'd be best to keep busy, so I wake up early, fill my travel mug with coffee, and head out the door. My ex-husband Jax is standing on my front porch, wearing nothing but a big red bow around his dick. "Happy birthday, baby!" he shouts, spreading his arms out wide. Sadly for him, it's a chilly mid-September morning, and his gift is looking a little, well, little. But Jax is shameless. Noticing his wilted state, he wraps a hand around himself and starts pumping. "Don't worry, Paige. I'll have him at full mast in a second here." "Don't bother," I tell him, as I push past him and head down the porch steps. "You cheated on me. We're divorced. And I wouldn't touch you with a 10-inch stick. Although it looks like I'd be pretty safe to use a 2 to 3-inch stick." Furiously beating away, I don't think Jax even hears me. Even though we've now been divorced for longer than we were married, he acts like our separation is nothing but a small roadblock on our road to happily ever after. He just can't get it through his head that when I walked in on him in pixie form, having sex with another pixie, everything changed. I hadn't even known before that moment that he wasn't human. To be fair, Jax only found out a few months before me. He was a changeling, a pixie baby switched out by the Fae and raised as if he were human. I can understand how shocking it must have been to realize his whole life was a lie. I'm less sympathetic to his decision to comfort himself in the arms of every willing female Fae he could find. In his mind, it didn't even count as cheating, because they weren't human. "I'm a little short on cash for a present," Jax says now. "But I know you always loved the D." He removes his hand with a little ta-da type movement and shows off his now fully upright member. "How do you want it? Cowgirl? Doggy? Missionary? It's your day, babe." This is Jax's idea of a super generous gift. It's so stupid, it's almost funny. Worse yet, I'm almost tempted to take him up on it. Our chemistry was red hot, and it's been too long since I've gotten some. Grieving the loss of my parents has put a damper on my sex drive. But over the last few weeks, I've felt it ramping up again. A little sex could be just the birthday present I need. But not with Jax. "If you come all over my porch, you're cleaning it up," I tell him as I head down the driveway to my beat-up van. 2. My old van starts on the third try, which is better than I'd hoped for. The last 2 days, I've had to take the bus when the engine simply coughed and then died. I treat myself to a bag of donuts on the way to the office. I eat one in the parking lot while scrolling through the humans-only dating app I put on my phone a few weeks back. I've been flirting via texts on and off with this super clean-cut ex-soldier guy. He looks hot in his pics, but a bit intense. Plus, from our messages, I can tell he's super ambitious. Right now, he works for the governor, but he wants to run for senator next year. I keep thinking I should cut him loose, but then he'll text something like, "I'm gonna lick between your legs until you scream." And I decide that maybe I should at least meet him face-to-face first. Or face to other places first. Maybe I'll hit him up tonight, see if he wants to come over. But first, work. Usually, I park right in front of my office. It's a small space in a beat-up old strip mall. The landlord gave me and Dad a break on rent when we were first setting up our business. The office next to me used to be Mervin's Accounting, a husband and wife team. They were good people, and we'd often have lunch or include each other in our coffee runs. But Mrs. Mervyn disappeared in the great ghosting. It broke poor Mr. Mervyn's heart. Months ago, he retired early and moved down to Florida. Since then, the office has been empty, but it looks like someone new is moving in today. A U-Haul truck is parked sideways across all the best parking spots. It's also blocking the best advertising I have, the Down and Dirty logo painted on my front window. Dad always thought the pin-up girl cartoon was too sexy, but once it started bringing in business, he couldn't deny that it worked. He just had a fatherly reaction to the fact that the pin-up girl resembles his daughter in more ways than one. I've actually been recognized in the streets because of the logo, and I can't say I'm offended by that. Parking my van at the other end of the small lot, I grab my donuts and hop out. The back of the moving truck is wide open, but I don't see anybody inside of it as I pass by. The truck is mostly emptied out. Only a row of filing cabinets is left inside. There's a logo on the end of one. I squint, trying to make it out. Something hard slams into me. Oof, I say, instinctively reaching out to grab hold of something that will stop me from falling on my ass. My hands lock onto rock-hard biceps. My eyes, startled and open wide, take in the rugged and piratical face of an incredibly hot guy. Whoa, I say, because, whoa. His hand is warm and huge on my back, holding me tight to him longer than is necessary. Not that I'm complaining. He smiles at me in a way that seems slightly dangerous, although maybe that's the eye patch covering one of his eyes. Finally, I find the willpower to release my grip on his arms and peel my body away from his. Sorry, I say. I wasn't watching where I was going. No, it was my fault, he insists chivalrously. His hand slides from my back to my elbow, and then, sadly, away. Although I could think of worse ways to meet. His eyes, or eye, twinkles, and I realize he's flirting with me. My libido, which only flickered briefly at the sight of my completely nude ex, roars to life like someone poured lighter fluid on it and then struck a match. Nico Trillano, he says, introducing himself. Me and my private eye practice are moving into the empty office today. Paige Harper. I point to the window over his left shoulder. That's my business, behind you. His smile grows even wider, displaying lots of pearly white teeth. Somehow even this is sexy. Down and dirty, he says, his voice a low, rough growl. I was admiring your logo earlier. I blush as he eyes me up and down, taking in my short shorts and tight tee. Although the mornings are cool, it's supposed to get hot by the afternoon, and my client today doesn't have AC. I've dealt with my parents' absence by eating my feelings a little too often. Every lump and bulge is on display. But Nico's gaze as he takes in my bare skin is anything but critical. With that warm gaze on me, it's impossible not to flirt. Just a little bit. You saw mine. Now show me yours. I look up at him from beneath my eyelashes. I can only imagine the type of logo a private dick might inspire. Nico bursts out laughing, and his admiration moves from below my neck to above it, like he's realizing there's more to me than just long legs and a nice rack. Reaching into his back pocket, he extracts a card and holds it out to me. It's a basic white card with black print. No cute cartoons for Nico. Just a large, creepy eyeball surrounded by his business name. Eye Wide Open Private Investigations. My heart flutters in a way that it shouldn't, but there's nothing I can do to stop it. I am now and always will be a girl with a weakness for a good pun. Punny, I say to Nico, hoping he understands that I mean this as a compliment.
I know.
He rolls his eyes, and I quickly realize that we are so not on the same wavelength.
My old assistant came up with it, and he was ridiculously proud of it. I went with it, against my better instincts.
He gives a shake of his head that tosses his thick hair around in a distracting way. I think that I might be able to forgive him his dismissal of such good punning, until he adds,
I regret it. Everyone knows puns are the lowest form of humor.
You're the lowest form of humor, I shoot back, offended right down to the soles of my feet. Nico's eyes widen, and then he laughs. Still upset, I spin away, but he catches my elbow, easily holding me in place. I'm not a fan of the big, strong cavemen-type guys who think they can just manhandle anyone small and feminine. But try and tell that to my arm, which is tingling as it communicates to the rest of my body that his hands are warm and rough and strong and enough. I cut off that thread of thought. What do you want? I ask him icily.
Paige.
Nico releases me to press the same hand that had held me against his own heart.
I had no idea you were the sworn defender of puns.
His eyes twinkle at me.
Do you go to the mat for other forms of humor as well? Fart jokes, maybe?
I sniff, pretending to be affronted, but it's impossible not to be charmed, and to play along. Puns are my sole responsibility. Fart jokes can toot their own horn. This earns a roar of laughter from Nico so generous that I feel my cheeks grow pink. Lowest form of humor, huh? I can't help but add. Leaning closer, Nico lightly boops my nose.
I have a feeling they're gonna grow on me.
We remain just a little too close for a little too long, with neither of us moving away.
I have a feeling you're gonna grow on me,
he continues, in a voice that's low and sexy. And that's all it takes. I'm ready to throw myself across the hood of his moving truck and demand that he take me right now, right here. Except for one thing. Dude might be a soup. I mean, it's also full daylight and STDs still exist, but really it's the possibility that he might not be fully human that holds me back from becoming a full-on exhibitionist. Trying to pull us back onto more professional ground, I take a half step back. My clients are for the most part human, I tell him, wanting to get it out in the open. I specialize in helping them clean up after having unfortunate run-ins with soups. Sure, I could have just asked him if he's a soup, but that's kind of rude. I've found that it's better to announce what I do. Most soups find my work offensive and don't hesitate to let me know it. We're not animals, they say, even though the shifters among them technically are animals at least 50% of the time. I cross my fingers behind my back, hoping with everything in me that he's not a soup. Nico nods, not looking angry or offended.
Yeah, I like to stick with human clients too. Most of my jobs are tracking down cheating spouses, and it's a hell of a lot easier to let a woman know her husband of 10 years has been cheating than it is to break the same news to a vamp who's been married for 10 decades.
10 decades? I repeat, unable to imagine that much time. Nico shrugs.
That's actually pretty short for vamps. Some have centuries-long relationships.
But they still cheat, I say, unable to keep the bitterness out of my voice.
Nah,
Nico replies.
Vamps are actually known for being incredibly loyal, but there's always a few that don't fit the mold.
Wow. You know a lot about vamps, I say, fishing, because he does know a lot. Also, vamps are known to be extremely good-looking, and Nico fits the bill.
Yeah, you pick that sort of info up in my line of work,
he says, and then with a single powerful leap, jumps into the back of his truck. My eyes narrow as I try to calculate whether that's something a super-fit human could do. I wait to see if Nico will lift the filing cabinets over his head, but instead, he fits one onto a furniture dolly and starts to roll it down the ramp. Realizing I'm just staring at him, and the way his muscles flex beneath his thin t-shirt, I make myself turn and head toward my own office. "Feel free to come over if you need anything," I call over my shoulder, hoping he hears it as friendly and doesn't get a hint of the image I can't quite suppress of us having sex on top of my desk. Inside my office, I fan myself with one hand. I've got a feeling that having Nico for a business neighbor is going to be a lot different than the Mervyns. 3. After eating another donut, I check my messages, hoping for some new client leads. Instead, I find a message canceling today's appointment. My Tuesday client is a rich college student who for the last 3 months has been secretly dating a cat shifter. My job is to remove all traces of fur so that when my client's mom stops by for her weekly visit, there will be no hint left of who her daughter is spending her nights with. My client was crying pretty hard as she left the message, but from what I can tell, the cat she was banging got sick of being her dirty secret and broke things off. I feel bad for the girl, because it's no fun to get your heart broken. But I also think she's better off. No way would her family ever have accepted a shifter. And even if they did, who would want to spend a lifetime with a tomcat? You can't depend on a man. Of any species. The problem is that this leaves me at loose ends for today. I glance over at the stack of flyers in the corner. Dad and I had 10,000 advertising flyers printed a few weeks before he ghosted. On days when we weren't busy, the two of us would find an area with lots of foot traffic and work the crowds, shoving a paper into as many hands as we could. It was awful. I'd rather clean up after an ogre anger management program. And ogres are known for expectorating their feelings out of their pores in tense moments. But Dad always pointed out that in the days after we handed out flyers, our phones would ring, and we'd book more jobs. I haven't had the heart to do it without him. But now I'm low enough on clients that I don't see any other choice. It's time to hit the pavement. I gather an armful of the dreaded flyers and head out. It's almost a relief when the van won't start up. Almost. Because transportation is necessary for my job, and I can't afford a major repair right now. I try a few more times, giving it gas, asking it nicely to please start, and then pounding the steering wheel and calling it names. But nothing works. It's a big, dumb, useless heap of metal. I jump when there's a tap at my window. It's Nico. I crank the window open. Yeah, the van is so old it has a crank instead of automatic windows.
"Can I give you a ride wherever you're going?"
Nico says. He glances back at his moving truck.
"I gotta return this beast, and I'd be happy to drop you wherever you want."
It's a generous offer. And even though a part of me just wants to take the bus home and pretend this day never happened, I know that scaring up some new clients is necessary to keeping my business alive. "Thanks," I say, grabbing the flyers and sliding out of the van. "I don't actually have anywhere specific to be, just handing these out." Pulling one from the top of the pile, I hand it to Nico.
"Reasonable rates. Friendly, all-human service."
Nico reads aloud from the flyer.
"Got a soup mess? Let us clean it up."
He looks up at me.
"Who's us?"
"My dad and I started the business together, but..." Nico opens the passenger door of the U-Haul for me and I climb in, which gives me a moment. It's still hard to talk about the ghosting. Sometimes I still come to work and think maybe Dad will be there, rolling his eyes about how I'm late again, and it was nice of me to show up.
But?
Nico asks as I buckle myself in. Great ghosting, I simply say. Both of my parents. Nico winces.
I'm sorry, Paige.
The way he says it is sincere, like he really means it. Then he swings my door closed and comes around the truck, getting into the driver's seat. As the big truck rumbles to life, I add in a small voice, "This is my first birthday without them." I don't know why I say it, and I don't even say it that loud, because I'm not sure I want him to hear. But the guy's got keen ears, and he turns to me with a sharp look.
It's your birthday? Today?
I shrug it off, like it's no big deal. Yeah, dirty 30. Or it was gonna be. But I'm not much in the mood to celebrate.
Sure,
Nico says after a moment.
but you can still have it a little dirty.
I jerk my head toward Nico, uncertain if he's propositioning me, but fairly certain that I'll take him up on it if he is. What? He blinks at me innocently.
Because of your cleaning business. You must get dirty.
Oh, there is definitely some double entendre in that last word. Nico Trelano is clearly an accomplished flirt. If I was looking for someone to spend the rest of my life with, he would not be a candidate. Monogamy is probably a concept he never considered applying to himself. But I'm not looking to get married, and he would be the perfect candidate for a hot birthday one-night stand. I don't mind getting dirty, I reply now, letting my own voice go low and throaty.
No?
Nico slants me a dangerous gaze, and the temperature in the car rises several degrees. The chances of us having a lunchtime quickie in the back of this moving truck looks near certain, until Nico slams on the brakes.
Shit,
he says. What? Nico points to a guy 2 blocks up who's heading into one of the stores lining the street.
I've been hunting that guy for over 2 weeks now.
I squint at the dot of a person in the distance as he disappears through a door. Are you sure it's him? He's so far away.
It's him,
Nico confirms.
I can
He cuts off whatever he was going to say. Maybe some sort of trade secret he doesn't want to let me know about? Jeez, as if I care. I clean things for a living. I'm not looking for tips and tricks on how to catch cheaters. Although I could have used them while I was still married to Jax.
You get a sense for these things,
Nico amends after a moment. Okay, I say, because I sort of get it. There are times when I'll see a stain and just know it's going to need the scrubber brush and extra bleach. My pun-loving dad used to call it my sick sense. Maneuvering the moving truck onto the side of the road, Nico glances my way.
Would you mind waiting here a minute or two? I'd hate to lose him.
Sure, I reply immediately. But no way am I sitting in this hot truck. I'll come along. I've always wanted to see a private eye doing his thing. Nico turns off the truck with a sigh.
Fine,
he says, all of his flirty charm suddenly packed away.
But don't get in my way. And if I tell you to do something, do it.
Bossy, I say lightly, avoiding any promises to follow orders. There's a reason I prefer running my own business, and a lot of it has to do with being in charge of my own ass. Still, I follow Nico as he walks casually down the street. We move up the 2 blocks toward where we saw the man disappear, and then right past the door he went into, which turns out to be a tattoo shop. I dig in my heels, glancing back. I think we... Nico grabs my arm and gives it a hard jerk.
Yeah, we went past it because I'm surveilling. You pointing isn't exactly helping me out.
I didn't point, I snap. I looked, and I don't appreciate being manhandled.
Then you're really not gonna like this,
Nico replies. And with that, he spins me around so that I'm pressed against him, his back against a nearby wall. His hands cover my ass, grinding my groin against his. There's no mistaking the feel of his hard, thick length through the front of his jeans.
Pretend you're kissing my neck,
Nico whispers, his voice hoarse and low.
Pretend you like me.
Oh, hell, I do like him. Or I like his body enough to overlook his bossy attitude. Like this? I whisper back. And then I nip at his collarbone, where it curves up from the collar of his shirt. Nico shudders against me as his hands climb up my back to tangle in my hair.
Yes.
I'm just about to bite him again when Nico whirls us both around. But this time, I'm the one against the wall. Planting a hand in the middle of my chest, he pushes me into the brick at my back.
Stay here,
he orders. And then, without another word, he takes off across the street in a low crouch. I watch as he enters the tattoo shop. I have never been so pissed off and turned on all at the same time. All of my senses are screaming, "Fuck this guy!" But not all of them with the same meaning. Finally, I get a hold of myself. No way am I inviting any guy who treats me this way to a birthday party in my pants. Instead, with a mixture of rage and horniness propelling me, I pull out my phone, bring up the humans-only dating app, and message my ex-soldier guy, Brent. Let's find out if we have chemistry in person. Meet for drinks tonight? I only have to wait half a minute before he replies.
Name the time and place.
Putting my phone back into my pocket, I smile. I'm gonna go find Nico and give him a piece of my mind. Then I'm gonna find a ride home and give this Brent guy a piece of something else. 4. The tattoo shop is weirdly empty. I thought I'd walk in on Nico and this guy he's chasing in the midst of some bare-knuckle fight. Instead, there's just a girl with blue hair, a nose piercing, and 2 full sleeves of tattoos, standing behind the counter looking bored. "Hey," she says with a super chill nod. "What can I do for you?" I start, but then stop as the wall of various tattoo designs catches my eye. Specifically, one section, the zodiac sign and constellation tattoos. They're so dainty and small, just tiny little stars. Before I know it, my finger lands on Ursa Minor. "How much for this one?" I ask. "50, she says. My heart sinks. 50 isn't that much money, but rent and all my other end-of-month bills are coming up, and without today's job, things are going to be tight. "Okay, thanks," I say. "Maybe in a few months."
Do it now,
comes a voice from behind me as Nico emerges from a back room in the shop.
It's on me.
"No." I shake my head. "I don't have the money right now."
It's a gift from me. Remember, it's your birthday?
Nico reminds me, as if I'd forgotten. "You barely know me."
So?
He turns to the clerk.
You got time to do her now, Ani?
"If she wants it," Ani replies with a shrug. Both her and Nico look my way. I glance once more at the picture of Ursa Minor on the wall. My parents fell in love beneath this constellation. It was one of their most favorite stories to tell. Having it on me, on my body, will be like having a little piece of them with me always. "I want it," I say. "Gimme 10, Ani says, and then disappears into the back room. "I'll pay you back," I tell Nico. He shrugs, brushing off this objection.
It's also an office warming gift.
I roll my eyes. You have the new office. I should be getting you a gift. Nico grins in a way that I've already identified as his dangerous, flirty smile.
I'd rather give than receive.
He brings a hand to his collarbone, touching the exact spot where my teeth lightly nipped his skin.
And I already owe you.
We stare at one another. The heat between us is undeniable. I consider texting Brent and pushing him to tomorrow. Nico tonight, Brent tomorrow. I can compare and contrast. Isn't a birthday girl allowed a little double-dipping? Ani comes back out and gets me settled for the tattoo. She's good at her job, calm and self-assured, explaining the process to me, reminding me that it is permanent. I show her the spot where I want it, on my right hand. Ani frowns. Feet and hands are extra painful. Lots of nerve endings and the skin is thin. You sure about that spot? I'm sure. I want it where I can see it every day.
She'll be okay,
Nico says, taking a seat beside me.
This one's tough.
He doesn't know me well enough to say that, but the words warm me nonetheless. And as Ani gets to work, I find myself wanting to live up to them. So I grit my teeth as she starts to needle my arm. Needing a distraction, I turn to Nico. Where'd the guy you were chasing go? The corner of Nico's mouth turns up in a mock smile.
Up in smoke. But don't worry, I'm pretty sure he'll be back.
I nod, accepting this miserly bit of information. It's already clear that Nico isn't the type to share his work. Needing a distraction from what's happening to my hand, I search for another topic of conversation. Thanks again for the ride, I say at last. That van has never been reliable. We had a new one, fresh off the showroom floor, years ago, and then it was stolen when I was doing a job in the city. Nico frowns.
Tough break.
Yeah, it was nice. But at the same time, it was a minivan with a cleaning business logo on the side. I never understood why someone would take it. Nico doesn't reply, and I wonder if he stopped listening. But then he says, softly, almost as if he's talking to himself,
Your logo is really distinctive.
His sharp gaze focuses in on me.
I'll put out some feelers.
No. I shake my head. It's been 10 years.
Sure, but nothing ventured.
Nico winks and then leans in.
Speaking of which, that hand's gonna be tender tonight. How about I buy you dinner? Make sure you don't think so much about the things that hurt.
It almost feels like he's talking about more than my hand. Like he knows the thing that's truly hurting me is the empty space where my parents used to be. Just about finished here, Ani says before I can reply. I blink in surprise, amazed that the time has gone by so fast. It's because of Nico, I realize. Maybe he's my real birthday present. From the universe. A bit of karma to somewhat balance out all the bad. I'd be an idiot to turn him away. With a smile, I turn toward him, ready to accept his dinner invite and offer myself for dessert. Then, 4 guys with dark sunglasses and backwards baseball hats burst into the shop. "This ends here," the smallest of them announces in a squeaky voice. He follows this up by pulling a gun from his pocket and pointing it straight at Nico. Nico, in response, sighs.
Aw, Hades, I really didn't feel like getting shot today.
He stands in one fluid move, and everything in his stance seems to scream, "Beware." The little guy with the gun clearly knows it, too. "I'll shoot if you move another muscle."
Really? Shoot then.
We all watch as Nico's biceps ripple. First his right arm, and then is left. Ani, the tattoo artist, laughs, apparently not at all concerned with all the guns suddenly on display in her shop. Show off. The little guy's grip on his gun tightens.
I'm not going back there. Yeah, you are,
Nico argues.
Shoot or don't. Then I'll grab you, and this can be over. What about if we all shoot you?
The little guy counters at the same moment that his 3 friends all pull out guns too. Nico still seems unfazed.
Whatever.
Excuse me. I stand up. I keep my voice steady despite the trembling in my legs. Marking my body with a tattoo is one thing, but I've got no intention of having any bullet holes put in it. That's a lot of hot lead that's going to be flying. Maybe you dummies don't care about catching some of it, but I do. So, excuse me. Putting both hands up, I sidestep toward the back counter, figuring it will offer some protection. When Ani doesn't follow, I grab hold of her arm and tug until she stands and follows me. Amazingly, none of them object, but simply watch until Ani and I are crouched behind the safety of the counter. Go ahead, I call out. Pretend you're big manly men with your big hard guns and your big hard... I'm stalling as I pull my own not-so-big gun from where I always keep it tucked in my back waistband. Look, a girl doesn't survive a near apocalypse without getting handy with a firearm. Popping up above the counter, I sight the little guy's gun and without hesitating, fire. I aim for the light fixture over the guys' heads, figuring it'll give them a scare and Nico an opening to get away. My aim is true, and the light explodes with an impressive hail of sparks. But Nico doesn't take the opportunity to duck and cover. Instead, there's a ferocious snarl from where Nico was standing. The next thing I know, the 4 guys are gone, and 4 chickens stand in their place. Nico holds the smallest one by the throat as he squawks. But he's not the Nico I met earlier today. Ears sprout from the top of his head, and dark fur erupts from his knuckles and all the way up his arms. He didn't fully shift, but he doesn't have to for me to figure out what he is. A werewolf. 5. I freeze. All day, I've been flirting with a soup. And I didn't even know it. Just like I didn't know Jax was Fae. The difference is, where Jax was ignorant, Nico could have told me. Should have told me. The jerk was clearly messing with me. The chickens scatter, feathers flying everywhere, their guns discarded on the floor as they escape out the door. I hold onto my own gun, keeping it trained on Nico. Before my eyes, the fur that had sprouted from his body shifts back into smooth skin.
Give it up, Tim,
Nico tells the chicken.
Your mom is worried.
Nico drops the chicken he'd been holding by the throat. As the animal falls, he shifts back into human form. A skinny boy hits the floor, sending feathers flying, and I realize he's not even a man. Just a kid, really. A teenager with a bad attitude.
You're not my dad, Nico. Even if you used to bang my mom,
the chicken boy says, trying to look tough even as he plucks feathers from his t-shirt.
Don't be a little shit, Tim,
Nico tells him.
Your uncle and mom said you came to the city, and they wanted me to keep an eye on you. Now you're up to this bullshit, joining a chicken gang? Really? What a joke. We're the real deal,
Tim insists.
Where are your chicken friends now?
Nico asks. Tim looks around, his face red as he realizes his friends were a bunch of chickens in every sense of the word.
You're not my dad,
he tells Nico again.
You left.
Nico nods.
When your mom and I broke up, I shouldn't have disappeared like that. I'm sorry.
Nico puts an arm around him. Tim nods and sniffles back his tears. Nico looks around, his eye focusing on me.
Paige, you can put your gun down. Thanks for not shooting Tim here, or any of his little friends.
I drop my arm, but keep my gun out. You're a werewolf.
Yeah, I thought you knew,
Nico says, that mischievous smirk on his face. How would I know that? I sputter. You should disclose that information, especially before asking someone out. Nico's eyes open wide with faux innocence.
Why? Would that have changed how you felt?
He knows the answer is yes, but I refuse to give him the satisfaction of admitting it. It does now. I don't date liars.
Too bad,
Nico replies, that mocking smile still on his face.
I thought you might like to find out how it feels to have a little werewolf in you.
He pauses briefly, his one eye twinkling as he adds,
Well, let's be honest. It's more than a little.
A snort of laughter comes from Ani crouching behind me. But I'm not amused. Never, I vow, meaning it with all my heart. The only thing we'll ever be is business neighbors who interact almost never at all. The tattoo girl pops up before Nico can respond. Who's going to pay for my light? I will, Nico and I say at the same time. I sigh. I put away my gun and call an Uber to get me the hell out of there. As I head out the door, Nico calls after me.
Happy birthday, Paige.
Not looking back, I simply hold my middle finger up high enough so that he doesn't miss it. In the end, my birthday isn't a total loss. The tattoo, once I take off the protective cloth taped over it, is beautiful. I know that I'll never regret getting it done. Even if it will take me months to pay Nico Trelano back the money he paid for it and the light fixture I shot. I mean, I can't take gifts from a werewolf. Even if he is hot and charming and the type of PI who tracks down punk chicken shifters. I do end up meeting up with Brent. The good thing about him is that, unlike the literally two-faced Nico, with Brent, what you see is what you get. He's very upfront about his ambition, what he's looking for in a partner, and how he thinks I might fit into his grand plans. The dude is intense, and I don't know if we'll make it longer than a week. But wow, does he know how to go down on a girl. Now that I think about it, that alone might make him a keeper. The best part of my birthday, though, is the morning after. I slip out of Brent's bed and take an Uber home, handing the driver my last handful of cash for a tip. Walking up my long driveway, I glare at my broken-down van. Until I remember that I left it broken down in the office parking lot. Also, this van is blue, the same shade as the one that was stolen 10 years ago. Heart in my throat, I race up the driveway, unable to believe it might be true. But there's my logo. It looks like someone tried to paint over it, but I can still see it shining through. I press my fingers to it. This van is old now, and probably doesn't run any better than the other one. But having it back after so long makes it feel like miracles can happen. Like maybe everything that disappears doesn't stay lost forever. The horn gives a jaunty little beep, almost like a hello, or a sign of electrical trouble. Sighing, I walk around to the front of the van. There's a note beneath the windshield wiper blades. I pluck it out and read,
Paige, funny what you can find in impound lots. Nico.
I sigh, realizing that the werewolf in the office next to mine is gonna be a lot harder to shake than I thought. And even worse, I'm glad. The end. This has been The Thrall of the Wild, a down and dirty supernatural cleaning services prequel by Kate Karyus Quinn, Demitria Lunetta, and Marley Lynn. Narrated by Carrie Coelho. Copyright 2021 by Kate Karyus Quinn, Demitria Lunetta, and Marley Lynn. Production copyright by Little Fish Publishing.